The thoughts and opinions of the guests on the Lens Living Diverse are the ones of the guest and do not represent the CNIB, the CNIB advocacy team, or the creators of the Lens Living Diverse.
It's the lens, it's the lens, it's the lens, gotta live diverse. It's the lens, it's the lens, it's the lens, to live diverse.
You are listening to the Lens Living Diverse, a podcast brought to you by the CNIB advocacy team. Join Nisha, Vivi, and I as we speak to individuals with intersecting identities who live with sight loss as they share their unique stories. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Lens Living Diverse. I am your host for today. I'm going to be doing it solo, your host, Ben. And today I have a very incredible episode with a legend in the blind, low vision community. He is part of Kelly and Company, and he is part of AMI with countless shows over the years, almost 20 years at AMI. So fantastic to have the one and only Kelly MacDonald with me today. Kelly, how are you doing today?
Ben, what an introduction. And I know there are people out there saying, who the what? But thank you kindly, my friend. I'm doing excellent. It's great to be here. It's great to talk to everybody. I know you and I have had a chat ahead of time. I think we're in store for some good conversation back and forth with some interesting opinion from both of us.
Yeah, of course, of course. And this is so amazing because I know on your show in the past, I've been interviewed by yourself. And it's like, whoa, this is a lot of pressure for me to introduce or interview the legend Kelly MacDonald.
Hey man, this is your show. I just sit back and I just try to be humbled and obliging and not talk too much.
Exactly. I remember in the past I had Ramya on the show, and I was like, it's gonna be a part where you're gonna just start interviewing me from what you're used to, right?
Yeah. Well, it gets into that. Well, what do you think? Or when did that happen to you? Or tell us more about that, Ben. And hold on a second. Cut that out.
No, I don't. This is all about you today. So I'm gonna start off by introducing the audience with or even if you could tell the listeners a little bit about yourself, your different intersectionalities and your different identities that you hold.
Ben, I've always dreamed of being involved in broadcasting. So that has woven its way in my life all through it since I was a kid, going to radio stations, making an excuse, calling up and saying, I'm just curious. And making friends with the people, showing up at remotes in parks or wherever I heard, oh, so-and-so's there. So I had parents that were really good at accommodating my little whims when it came to it. At the blind school, I went to the W.S. MacDonald School in Brantford. I ran a little radio station there. But I also got involved in some of the sports. And I think some people chuckle at me now and say, really? Yeah, I was a big goal ball person. I've always been a baseball, hockey, basketball, and football fan when it comes to the majors. And we played those at the blind school. I am a firm believer. I was lucky enough to be in mainstream schooling and also at the W.S. MacDonald School. I think it's crucial if you have the opportunity to do both. And I'm not going to argue with people out there who may say, oh, no, I just did one or the other. I'm not condoning anyone. I found it helpful for me, especially once I got into college, because I was a person who was self-conscious as a teenager, going out and moving around and doing things. So as life went on, I finally got into broadcast school. And a few years later, landed a gig at AMI doing production work. And I'll be honest, off the top, I did not really want to work there. I wanted to work in conventional on air. And when I started working at AMI, at that time, there was no on air. It was production, which is what my work was for a number of years. And I became a coordinator working with volunteers. Then we applied for the license for the TV channel, which once we got that, I vaulted into being a reporter, getting a chance to learn a lot about people. And I'm going to tell you, that was my dose of not ever being an advocate, really, Ben, learning about disability, especially outside of the low vision and blind community. I mean, Of course, I was a volunteer at the time at CNIB for a number of years. I've been part of the Canadian Council of the Blind, and I've taken advantage of horseback riding, accessible horseback riding, and doing so many different things like that, including at one point playing on the Ontario team for goalball. And I walked away wanting to get my life career. This was when I was still in high school at W. Ross. And then I left and went
Mhm.
to conventional sighted school, and I kind of gave up on a lot of that stuff, wanting to get that focus of radio. I've always been a
Mm.
theater fan. I discovered that in high school at W. Ross, gave that up for a while. But just before I started to work at AMI in 2001, I got involved in some theater stuff. I had been writing a
Mhm.
play for Radio Western in London back as I finished up high school at Saunders and before I got into college. And drama was a real interest. So I started to take that more serious and created my own theater company, also ran the Glenville Players in Toronto. So as I worked at AMI, as I got into television, that yen for being on air never left me, nor my wanting to return to London. I had to go to Toronto during the week, met a lot of wonderful people, had a life there and a life in London. Um,
Mhm.
so when I had the opportunity to work from home as things started to change, this is prior to the pandemic even,
Yeah.
there was a lot of that, a couple of days a week working from home, and you had that feeling, I got to prove I'm doing stuff. I don't want someone to take this away, because at that time it wasn't a common thing like it is now. And I felt very privileged. Found out as I got doing it, I'm working harder at home than I am in the
Mhm.
office, because in the office I can get up and wander around and run my mouth, which I'm very good at. And I guess, Ben, I experimented. I was kind of on the frontier of things at AMI, where we messed with TV, got to learn a few things. And of course, a lot of that stuff we learned was, look at Kelly there. Let's not do
Mhm.
that again. So
Mhm.
everybody says, "Oh, it's cool to be a pioneer." Okay, if you
Yeah.
say so. But we've come so far, and I've had the privilege of being involved with so many things at AMI that I know my fellow broadcast schoolmates haven't got a chance to do. First of all, I'm still in
Mhm.
the industry where many are not. I segued from audio production into doing television, and even hosting for a few years my own show called Blindsided, which you can find on YouTube if you do a search for it. And now hosting Kelly and Company. We're celebrating 8 years of doing a talk show daily, and something that
Love it.
back when I started at AMI was not on the table, was a no-go, was we won't be doing any shows like that. And we started to slide into it. But the
Love
thought of
it.
doing live, no way.
Love it, love it, love it. And actually, I like how you brought up Blindside, because that was actually my first exposure to yourself, where I wasn't aware of AMI when I was younger, and I remember turning on TV and I was like, oh, look at this guy doing all these adventurous things, and it's like nothing's stopping him. He's doing it, he's falling over. I still remember that episode of you in a sumo outfit and you
Oh gosh, that was fun too. I mean, that was funner than doing the surfing. The surfing, it was kind of not
Mhm.
quite becoming. It was great to try, but to say, oh, I'm a bit of a big guy for this. I used to say to Grant Hardy and some of the younger people who were doing stuff on the network at the time, why the hell am I doing all this stuff? I'm old and out of
Mhm.
shape. What do you guys, younger people, should be doing this? But what a privilege. And I know some people say, well, you got to travel with it. You got to do different things. And I remember them saying to me, what do you want to do? So you saw the pattern of, I want to drive this, I want to fly this, like flying an airplane
Mhm.
for a few moments, and that I mean, what a rush and what a privilege, especially for someone who's blind. I understood I was in a very privileged and lucky position to have
Mhm.
my show, but I wanted to think, what do I want to do? How can I share that experience for someone else sitting there saying, well, I won't get a chance to do that. No, but let's see. And I was okay with a lot of things that I wasn't good at, Ben, where other people might say, well, I can't even carry a beat there, or I can't even sing. I don't want that on TV. That's
Mhm.
embarrassing to me. Well, I understood also that I'm not supposed to be this perfect guy. Now, there were those darn times where I did some darn things pretty darn good, and no, we can't have that, Kelly. That no one's going to believe you first were that good at that. Come on, we've
Mhm.
got to have you mess it up. I said, well, just give it enough time. I'll mess it up all on my own for sure.
Mhm. Getting paid to mess something up. That sounds like my forte. And even to add on to the question I asked you, so we had a conversation about the aspect of sounding black, right?
Yes, yes.
And in blind low vision community, in a blind low vision world, a lot of people don't know that you're a black man.
No, no, they don't.
Yeah.
I recall being at a function and a guy that I had known for a number of years, and we were talking, and I don't know what the reference was that I made, but I said something about being black, and he stopped. Like it was like a deer in headlights, right? If he could see, and he said, what, you're black? I said, yeah, is it still okay to talk to you? And I only meant that as a very silly joke with him, right? I certainly
Mhm.
had no thought of him being a racist or having a problem with it or anything like that. And he's, oh, well, yeah. And I realized I kind of embarrassed him because for a moment he thought that I was serious. And I have lived that life, as I said, relatively privileged. I think I've run into racism primarily looking for broadcast jobs, and I don't know the racism that I've run into more, quite frankly, is being blind or being a big guy.
Mm,
And we can talk a little bit about that, but it's one of those things that I have heard from people who don't know. And they think, what? He's not black. And I understand people down in the US think you're supposed to sound like Southern Americans or Black Americans,
mhm.
or here in Canada, you're supposed to sound like you're from Jamaica or one of the islands.
Like the Toronto slang and everything. And yeah, definitely untrue for sure. And if you could kind of give a little bit of background, kind of your cultural background or your family background.
I'll be honest, I've never looked at my family tree.
Oh.
When I was a child, we used to use the term colored. And I really didn't really think much about it. The only real area I really felt that being black or being of color was other people. And I know we
Mhm.
talk about this, especially when we hear of people from the LGBTQ communities, if they want to adopt a child, oh, well, people come up with well, that child's going to be ridiculed because both their parents are male, blah. And I'm sorry, that's on us. And adults are often, the guilty party. Kids say things, we joke, as a child, you joke, you may say things, you pick a nickname up for someone, but a lot of time that's put in our head from somebody who should know better. And it's sad that that would be our thought. Well, you can't do that. You don't want to put that child through that. And there are times I kind of felt like that. I knew I was black or colored at the time. The blindness thing, I knew I had poor vision, and I didn't carry a cane until really I went to the blind school, and even then we didn't carry it on the campus. It was for going off campus. And I guess when I started to do that was when I understood that people misinterpret my issues. I must be drunk.
Mhm.
I'm a big guy. I'm obnoxious. I take up the whole sidewalk. I don't care about other people. I'll just run them over because I can. As opposed to thinking, I think that man has a vision problem. So
Mhm.
I learned that because I was out hanging onto a guy's arm one day, and some friends that knew him looked at him and stared. And I think they thought maybe they didn't know something about him because he's got this big guy hanging off him. And
Mhm.
I know he was uncomfortable. And again, not that anyone made any remark or was obnoxious or rude, but I also realized that I put him a little bit in a spot. And also, it'd probably be a smart thing for me to carry my cane in case I lose that person and stuff like that, not be so relying on. And I think I was about 16 at the time, right? And I've always then carried my cane ever since. But as a black person, I have never really felt until I was looking for broadcasting the racism that some people feel.
Mhm.
I'm aware it's out there. I'm aware there are people who won't hire people, maybe of color. But I'll be honest, Ben, I think most of us with disabilities are more behind the eight ball than people of color. I think there are people out there, and I kind of shake my head when I talk to racist blind people, because my view is, what are you kidding me? An employer will hire
Mhm.
somebody of color before they'll hire you, whether you have
Mhm.
the skills, the goods. That's one of my honest beliefs of our society. And I'm not saying a person has to be racist as much as they don't understand. How will you do this job? I'll go with the black guy over there.
Yeah, and you know what? It's so interesting that you bring that point up because it's that importance of looking at intersect, right? Because you
Yes.
have that, oh, they'd hire a able-bodied black man over a person who has low vision, but then add in that person who's a black man who lives with low vision compared to a white person who lives with low vision. So it's like such different intersex, or maybe a woman who has low vision compared
Exactly.
to
Well, women are really behind in pay, in treatment, and we're still
yeah.
talking about this now. And I remember hearing about this when I was a teenager in the 80s. How come women aren't paid the same if they're doing the same job? How come? And
Mhm.
this is the kind of thing I used to joke when I was shooting Blindsided that I was big, black, and blind.
Yeah.
Those were my, monikers as and some would say when you say it that way, it almost sounds like you're naming your disabilities. And I said, well, in parts of
Mm,
life, it feels like their disabilities when someone is unsure of me because I'm black, they can't relate, or they gravitate to me because they prefer somebody of color. And hey, man, we're all the same. Well, no, we're all the same. Everyone, we're human beings. Now, I appreciate.
mhm.
Okay, I think it's kind of cool. Hey, bro, but to me, that's a laugh, funny kind of thing. I'm me first, and
Yeah.
she is she first, and you are you first, and so on.
Exactly, exactly. And I love how you made that moniker big black and blind. I could say I'm small black and blind. There we go. I'm the mini you right
Yeah,
there.
exactly. Well,
Yeah.
I'd be happy to be that way because I know when I've done theater, and
Yes.
this is one of the most passive, and I don't think people would stop and think about it. But as a big guy, and I've gone and borrowed costumes from other theater companies, troops, circumstances where they had stuff, and I may have been involved in a play that was a period piece. So we go down and look at the stuff, a few of us, and everybody else gets their stuff, and the person turns and says, "All right, well, let's see what we have that'll fit you." And it's a subtle comment.
Mhm.
But do you know how it makes a person feel? Oh, I'm a problem because I'm bigger. Now, again, we joke and say, well, people in theater and TV and movies, they're all small. And I'm sure some of
Mhm.
them, if they were sitting here, would have their point of, well, you know what? I get jobs for my blonde hair or because I'm petite or whatever, right? And
Mhm.
ladies will have their version of what it is. But I can tell you, it's a subtle remark. And the worst thing about it, you don't know what to say because the person isn't meaning it in a racist way. It's to
Yes.
them a dilemma, like the person hiring you who has no idea how this blind man is going to work
Mhm.
my computers with this. What's this screen reader thing?
Yeah, and it definitely comes from a place of lack of knowledge. And actually, you are leading me into my next question for you, is the fact that in the entertainment industry, with those intersecting identities, and you made mention about you being bigger, uh, being black, and then being blind. How has that kind of been seen as you navigated through the entertainment industry?
Well, I I've done a lot of community theater.
Yes.
I've been hired to do different things associated with the disability community. Now, I mentioned that when I got working at AMI, I thought, I don't really want to work for the blind broadcaster. I'd like to get a conventional job in broadcasting. Well, first of all, I had to lose that silliness because,
Mm,
I talk about others kind of being funny towards me. Well, there's one of those where even in plays, I've thought, I remember I was cast in a play, and when the writer found out I was blind, and I was cast because it called for a black guy. And in London, Ontario at the time, there weren't that many blacks doing theater.
mm,
So the director had come to me and said, will you audition for a part in the show we're doing? And this was to be a very popular, big play in London, and was going to get a lot of PR. I wanted to do it. When the writer found out I was involved, he asked the director, could you check with Kelly to see if he'd mind if if we made the character blind? I think it's
mm,
another level. Well, I said, oh, at first, I don't know if I'm cool with that. Because as
mm,
an actor, I'm trying to show myself as an actor. And the first thing, the siren goes off in my head, woo, woo, typecasting, woo, woo,
mhm,
typecasting. I don't want any part of that. But on the same token, people seeing me up there acting and then becomes the advocate part of you. Yeah, but
mm,
if people see me moving around on the stage, people see me acting, people like my role, maybe the next person gets a part easier, whether they're playing a blind person
mm.
or not. And I had played numerous parts in life as a sighted person. I knew I
Yes.
could do that, but I also am aware of movement, physical movement. How do you look? Do you look credible or not? And I've had that where I've stopped and said, I need you to help me How do I lift this properly with this cup? How do I walk from here to there? And that I think I do fine walking and on stage if I was playing a sighted person. But you can think stuff. We all have things to learn and
Mm,
kind of have to practice and adapt. So I've always welcomed that in theater, but I also am sure there's times I haven't got a part because I'm blind. I haven't
mm,
got a part because, yeah, your audition was terrible. Okay. And most people will say when they audition for plays, you often don't get the part that you want. So I have had it where I've gotten parts because I'm black. I've had parts where I've gotten it because I'm a bigger guy. I've had parts that I haven't got because being black, blind, or a bigger guy. It's hard to say. I can guess and feel that that's what's happened. But I've also had a lot of success in getting a lot of roles.
mm,
I expect as I get older, the ageism thing will come in for certain things. I've even done some audio description where I know I'm not getting some more gigs because of my voice, because of our Canadian accent.
yes. Yes, and it's so interesting where you brought up the word typecasting, and
Mm,
nowadays I'm starting to get into the entertainment field, and it's a fun field. It's awesome. And what I'm noticing is just like you were alluding to before, is the fact that they're really asking, oh, we need a blind guy, or we need this black guy, or we need someone at this height, or we need dot dot dot. So do you think that's going in a positive direction in this generation, or do you think once again using that word of typecasting?
well, I think it's going in a very positive way. I'm not so sure. And if you look at other people out there who are actors, a lot of time they have to fight to get a role. They are often, as you hear later on, oh, so and so was who they wanted in that role and they declined it, or so and so auditioned and didn't get it. So and so, they're a big actor. Why wouldn't they get it? Because someone didn't see them for that role. I liken our journey right now when it comes to disability and getting involved, or people of color. It is probably closer. And when I say people of color, I look back to the 70s and the 60s when it seemed on all the TV shows that I watched as a kid, if they had a storyline that involved Asian persons or black people, they were the same actors. It was the
Mm-hmm.
same. You'd swear Hollywood only had
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 TV actors that were black. And then it started to grow in the 80s, the 90s, and to what it is today, where you have such a plethora. And I'm sure music works the same. We know Major League Sports has. There was those at times where you had a Negro League as opposed to that baseball players who were just as good as
Mm-hmm.
anyone in Major League Baseball. Not allowed over here, you know. And I used to feel that applying for jobs. Oh, I know of blind people doing radio, but not at my station. So
Mm-hmm.
it is going in the positive direction, even for those of us who have no interest in being in something, but at least there's more reflection. I think we have to get to where there's characters in stuff that we don't necessarily even think twice about their disability. I know working for AMI, I get stopped and people will say, "Hey, you work for AMI?" And I'm always delighted that it isn't the conversation of, "I would like to bless you. I think it's amazing you get out of bed and go to work every day, especially with your disability."
Mm-hmm.
They want to know, so what was it like doing that surfing? What the heck was it like squeezing into that neoprene suit? You know, and things like that. And I think that's wonderful when people are more surprised to see you off of their television and in living color, as opposed to, oh, so you really are blind. Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What I feel, and I try to sell this to my coworkers at AMI, one of the things that blows my mind away, and I hope it translates to work, and I think it has. We see CBC with their CAPE program and so many different things happening when it comes to the industry and opportunities. But I love when it's commonplace, when we're hearing more disability stories because they are headlines, as opposed to our always saying, what's this politician going to
Mm-hmm.
do for me, the disabled person? They never mention that. Yeah. We're not interested. We're talking more to the mainstream people. So we never know when we're going in to vote, what is this politician going to do for me? It's not talked about, but more and more stories of disability, whether it's paratransit in your community, whether it's a really cool pottery group that started for blind people, or people in wheelchairs, and their curling league and what have you. There are different things now, exposure that the general public, just like Indigenous stories that we're all soaking up at this time, we're interested in. And you got to hit while the iron's hot.
Yes, yes. And I totally agree with what you're saying, where it's just like people are starting to be more aware.
Hmm.
And I love what you said, like stories are starting to be more complex instead of, oh, blind guy runs a marathon. Wow, he's so amazing. It has more complexity of how did he run that marathon? How was he training? What
Yes.
was the mindset? And I thoroughly believe like the more media that we consume, that it just normalizes.
And social media, right?
Hmm.
Because nobody wants to be lectured to. When
Yes.
people grab your arm when you're trying to get on a subway and they pull you and they haven't said hi, how are? Do you need a hand? Or asked? We get very frustrated as a blind person, but they're just trying to help because someone has said to them, "Hey, when you see somebody, give up your seat or help them." See, well, but people don't know really what to do. They just in their head are supposed to do something. But when they can go on social media, YouTube or wherever, and watch video or see a tweet at X, what do they call them now, post where someone is just simply talking about something that went on with them today in maybe a less chastising way. They learn without feeling like they're sitting in a room being spoken
Hmm.
at by you or me. Don't do this. Don't, okay, here on the overhead, you see these 12 things not to do. These are the sins of running into
Hmm.
disabled people on the street. Don't do them.
Hmm.
They learn it in their own way, their own time, and consume it better. And that is when we talk about losing our own ignorance. All of us have it about something. There's so many things I wouldn't know what to do. I remember I used to be very uncomfortable with people in wheelchairs. I
Hmm.
just didn't want to offend, didn't want to do the wrong thing. And funny enough, I would tell people, "Oh, don't worry about offending me," when they would say the same thing to me as a blind.
Yeah.
Well, I don't want to ask you if you watched TV last night. Isn't that insensitive?
Hmm.
No, it's the English language.
Hmm. And like you said, it's one of those things where it is just us not knowing the interaction. And
Yeah.
actually, I do a little bit of stand-up comedy, and one of my bits is like me walking down the street and a person in a wheelchair walking down the street. We bump into each other. Person falls out of the wheelchair. I drop my cane. We're looking around. Both our friends help us back into our situations. And then it's me walking with my friend whispering, "Oh my God, I just knocked over a guy in a wheelchair." And then it's like the guy in the
I'm-
wheelchair whispering to his friends, "Oh my God, I just knocked over a blind guy."
And it's
So,
so true. I mean, I've been at events. I remember
yeah,
years ago being at a fundraiser, and there was a whole bunch of blind people at this event.
yeah.
And I kind of found it funny because we're walking around, getting in each other's way, and becoming intolerant, like as if it's somebody on the street who won't use their eyes, has the choice of using them or not, is what I like to say. And we were so, get out of the way. Like we were so rude, forgetting, man, that person can't see either. What do you do? It was like quite the comedy
Mhm.
act, like you're talking about. And it's so funny because you get in your own station and you do forget, and you do have to realize there are things I don't understand about what, as I could see more about total blind people. I like get
Mm.
intolerant. What do you mean you can't find that? It's the door down on the right, the third one. But now that I've lost so much vision, I keep my mouth zipped shut a lot more.
Mm. Yeah, no, it's just funny how the mindset, but that's human nature, right?
It
That's
is.
you gotta
Well, we
love
think
that.
we have to know, don't we? We
Yeah.
like you have to know what to do in any circumstance. If somebody, aliens came down, whoop, I got Ben, let's drop him here. Boom, Australia. He saw, and you are supposed to know, right, what to do, what's the right and wrong things to do, the proper etiquette. And you can't because we don't want to look silly or be insensitive. When often I'll say to people, because they'll say, "Well, I just don't know what to say or do." So you don't say anything. And they'd say, "Well, I just don't know what to say or do." I say, "You have no damn business knowing what to do. It's not part of your
Mm.
world. Ask questions."
Of course, of
That all looks
course,
stupid. Yeah.
of course. And no one like coming from you, and it's like such a vast field of wisdom. And actually, a question that I have for you is, with all the projects that you've been working on for the years in entertainment and radio, what is something that's like just dear to your heart in helping people have more awareness of your identities as an individual?
I think one of the things that I enjoyed the most as a sports fan, I went to Blue Jays spring training and people
Oh,
would say,
wow.
"Oh my gosh, that'd be wild. That's great." Yeah, but it was wild and great for probably not the reason people would think. I got to hang out with a bunch of the media people. and we talked. And I learned so much from people like Bob Elliott and Jerry Howarth and stuff, but people like that. But on the level of talking and learning a little bit more about my craft.
Mhm.
I had the opportunity to be in a Johnny Reed music video once, and that wasn't
Mhm.
something ever on my radar to do. And he came out and he thanked us all, but it was so tremendous to be a part of the video and get that experience. What I have found, Ben, not just with Blindsided, not just with doing Kelly and Company over the years, um, the opportunities I've been very privileged to pick out one and say, hey, all the way into the theater, the play I was mentioning where I was asked to play this blind black reverend, it was powerful. And sometimes just the lessons through the research and opportunity to learn from other people. Oh my goodness, do I feel blessed? I'm a guy who wanted to do theater starting in high school, always wanted to do radio, and I've grown up being exposed to television, theater, radio. Um, I don't even know what I could say to people. Like, I've gotten to do all sorts of other things. I've got to try out, go to places, and I'm not a huge travel person. I have my list of 4 or 5 places I'd love to go to see what they're like for a few days or whatever. But everywhere I'm interested in, but not overwhelmed to I have to, save the money and go there. Maybe Venice, Italy. Maybe
Mhm.
I'll say that, but I'm being a big guy, I'll probably end up in one of the canals somehow.
What a way to go, eh?
Oh
The
man, for
legendary
sure.
Kelly MacDonald and
Swimming in one of the Venice canals and them
uh-huh.
saying, what a shift. And again, Ben, one of the things I find, and I'm doing it now, making fun of myself, right? Over the
Yeah.
big guy in the water. I was very tempted to make a big guy remark. And I've really tried to get away because so many of us do that self-deprecating,
Mm.
jokes about ourselves, poking fun. And I did stand-up comedy like yourself for a little while, playing around with it, going to yuck yucks and that for the amateur nights and stuff. And I've always wanted to do radio because I've always thought I could do different skits, different voices, sound effects when I'm
Yeah.
on air, messing around like that. So I kind of chose that over the stand-up life. But the comedy that I find a lot of us do, it's almost like to poke at ourselves before someone else pokes at you.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's a negative either way. It really is. And I love the people who just kind of don't laugh or just say, quit it, man.
Mm. Yeah, and it's funny you say that because I noticed it a lot lately, right?
Yep.
And I
Yep.
think people, it's just like you said, they want to poke at themselves, but it is peeling away at some people where sometimes people don't even want to poke at you, but the first thing, yeah, I'm the blind guy, yeah, I just yeah, yeah,
The
and
elephant in the room.
yeah,
And the problem with that is for some, you're opening the door because people say, oh, well, he can laugh at him. So those are the jokes. I mean, man, how many times you've been out with people start doing their drinking, and the first joke is, I guess you're going to have to be the designated driver.
how
And
many
you have
times
to
have I heard that
pretend,
joke?
that's the first time someone, oh, that's
Hmm.
so funny. No, it isn't. Right?
Hmm.
Okay. But the person doesn't mean any harm. You don't want to hurt their feelings. You ha 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 ha. And everyone who says it thinks they come up with an original joke.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's probably the 100th time I heard that.
Yeah. Well, let's go for
Yeah,
101. Hey,
yeah.
hey, Ben, you're going to be the designated driver. Hand me that drink.
And it won't be the last probably, and it's just so
No.
true. It's so true. Okay, we're gonna round back at when we are having that conversation about the whole aspect of sounding black, right?
Yep.
And I want to apply this to the blind low vision community. And you making mention you went to W. Ross and the fact that you have your community of blind low vision individuals. So even the whole thing, and I know sometimes people say, I can't see, I can't be racist, I don't know color of individuals. What's your mindset on that?
Well, I hate to admit it, but I think we all have our stereotypes, which some may consider that racism. We fall into that trope all the time, or not all the time. At some point in life, we can be open-minded. It's like the people who will argue that you shouldn't say, "Well, I don't see color." Oh, you don't? So then that means you stay ignorant about anyone else's differences, circumstances, and what's happening. Or some people, when they say that, they really mean it. They don't have that issue that anyone, they would hire anyone It doesn't matter. Long, can you do the job? That's what I'm interested in. Your credentials here say you can. You're hired. I'm not interested.
Mm,
Um, I know one of the lessons that I thought was one of the most interesting is when I first started working in Toronto, I would hear some things said by members of the blind community that I was associating with that were a little racist, in my opinion. Again, I'm Mr. Londoner. We're London at the time, very white city, not as much ethnic as by far we have now, with a lot of different communities here. Hey, fedora's off to London because it's wonderful always. My parents used to always love the diversity in Montreal where I was brought up for a few years because and my dad loved that. And
mm,
but one of the things I would find is a lot of frustrated blind people. And it came out
mm,
sounding to me like racism. Well, as I moved around Toronto and I would stop at the Eglinton subway at Eglinton and Yonge, and I'd go down and say, can I get this, that, and that? Because I wanted to take a snack to work. I'd get to work, open it up, and hey, man, I wanted a cookie. What the heck is this muffin in here? And it was
mm,
due to the fact that I remember the person would say, what? You wanted this? The muffin or a cookie and oh, this, yeah, okay, now this, they're pointing at it, I can't see it, it's a muffin.
mm,
And I understand that people who maybe were more watching their money than I had to at that point, but I recognized how frustrating and what I was hearing people say, which sounded like, these foreigners coming here and blah. It was more of a, I don't know how to solve this problem. It bites me all the
mm,
time. I spend money on something. I look forward to it. I open the bag to eat it, and it ain't there. And I had
mm,
to understand that frustration and not be so quick to say, oh man, this town's full of racists. Man, I'm getting out of here.
mm, and it's like kind of that barrier,
It
the
is. Well, because what do? I mean, I'm excited with technology to be able to have someone who's speaking to me in a different language and have my phone interpret and tell me what they're saying, which we're, minutes from. We can do that with certain kinds of apps and our smart speakers in some ways now, but to be able to use it in a real-time, real way, it's going to be amazing. So, or vice versa, even if you say it in English, and it can come out in their language on the screen if you can figure that out, what their language is, or you happen to know. But some of those things are going to be really kind of cool because it's a frustration that I don't know how you solve it. You can't go reaching over the barrier and say, no,
yeah,
I want, oh, that's a stupid cookie. There's the muffins. What kind is this? You
yeah.
can't go feeling around doing that. You don't have everybody, you don't want to necessarily bug anyone else in line or waiting because the person behind you saying, hurry up, I got a train to catch.
Yep. Or you don't want the other way around where the person's like grabbing your hand and be like, this one or this
No,
one. So,
exactly. Or here, taste this one. No, I barely touched it. Put it back. Yeah, and I think Ben, that's kind of where I felt I've had to grow and understand because the first thing, my thing is, you guys are racist. Don't be like that. Well, that's not so simple either, and that's not always the situation. And sometimes we scream that a little quickly.
yes. Yeah, totally agree. Totally agree with things like automatically, oh, that sounded that way, or it sounded this way. And a lot of I like where you even made mention with the bias aspect of it, where it is those biases, right? And even looking at the different side of it, you don't necessarily have to see to be biased.
Mm-mm. And we're a
Yeah.
funny country. We want all these people to come to our country, but we'll complain about it. And we forget very quickly that a lot of us, our families, our grandparents came here from somewhere else. And
Hmm.
we get very short minded that, well, there's too many people here that don't speak. If you're going to come here, you have to be able to speak clear English. Well, unfortunately, there are people who have been here 50 years who still have an accent. And you can't tell, well, go get rid of that. But our view
Hmm.
is, well, at least they're speaking English and understand as best they can. But people are going to make mistakes, and depending where you are, you're going to find that more of an issue than other places. Just like people who don't have the experience of dealing with a person maybe of color or a person with a disability, or somebody that comes from a culture where less people are overweight, so the lack of tolerance is there
Hmm.
because of the lack of understanding. We are more ignorant.
Hmm. Hmm. And that's where the knowledge comes in. That's where aspects such as your TV show Kelly and Company come in. Uh, the podcast we're doing right now. And I feel
Yeah.
like the more we have these discussions, the more that a lot of other people get represented and they think to themselves, oh my gosh, maybe this is where I can make the changes, right? To be
Yeah, because we
more.
can't lecture everyone. We can't
Mm,
expect you can't expect me to say, understand because you've told me, Kelly, that's wrong. Don't do that. But why? It's all I understand. I don't know. I'm not trying to be difficult. And again, there are people that there's no point talking to. We have our thought, our mind made up, and there's no point trying to change their mind. You just hope people don't get hurt from that, that it's not that degree. I mean, I've run into people and I don't have a clue what instantly rubs them wrong when it comes to me. It might be the look, might be the skin color. I can sit here and make up all sorts of things because we all have to have an answer. Well, why don't they like me? What did I do? I didn't do anything. They're just miserable. And unfortunately,
mm,
sometimes, in a lot of cases, you'll never know. It may be
yeah.
something with them. Maybe you did do something and you're not worth it to them to explain it. And a lot of time as you grow older, you start learning you can't be everyone's friend. You're not everyone's cup of tea.
Mhm.
And that's okay as long as nobody disrespects you and harms you.
Wise words, wise words. I feel shaded under the Kelly learning tree right now.
Hey, man, good. That's good. There's lots of protection there.
Any free apples or anything,
Oh yeah, and the other thing you could do, Ben, is just stay in and stay away from everyone. Then you don't have any of the worry about any of that. Oh yeah, I work from home. That's where I get that mentality.
Gotta love it, gotta love it. So I have one more question to ask you, and it's basically, well, I guess like, I'm gonna probably pop in another question for sure, and your social media and all that. But this question, um, as anybody who shares the same intersecting identities as you, such as being in the entertainment field, being a person of color, plus being perhaps bigger or and living with blindness, what advice would you give them? What would you say to them?
I would say go after things. Now, again, there's things that years ago we fought for. A lot of us, we did a lot of work for free. Now people aren't going to have it. They're going to say, you want me as a consultant? You want me as an actor? You want me as a singer? You got to pay. And I think we're at that right point where people have to start recognizing that. And a lot of places are. Are we going to have the same issue of are we going to get equal pay for equal work? Probably not, because a lot of us in the disability community, we know there's a lot more work we have to do if we want to be able to do certain things. And people aren't going to understand that. They're not going to get it. And we're just going to have to put that time in, especially if you love something, whether it's memorizing lines, whether it's putting the extra time in to learn something, a step or whatever. But when it comes to the entertainment field, and I've talked to so many different diverse people, I've had the privilege with real talent. I think that's the other thing. You look on YouTube and there are so many movers and shakers out there
Hmm.
with real talent, whether they're actors, singers from the disability community. Obviously, we know from other minority groups or what we would call a minority group here, but in other parts of the world, because the world is so small now, we're getting that reflection. There are a lot of opportunities. There are things I do now, have done at AMI in my time there, never thought I would do. And maybe they're small examples. Hey, I never thought I'd be on TV. I never thought I'd ever go to the CRTC to apply for a TV channel or be on that, where other classmates of mine haven't had the opportunity, but there's things they've got to do with their broadcast entities or the furniture store they work at, whatever it might be, that years ago you wouldn't have got a chance to do. There's just no way. So definitely technology's our friend to a point, but there's still always going to be those things that why can't I do this? Why isn't this accessible? But at least now there's checks and balances. So you got to be realistic
Hmm.
about your skill, your willingness to do the work that you may find yourself having to do, appreciative and thank those who have supported and helped. We never do anything on our own.
Hmm.
And go for it. Have pride in yourself that you know what you're doing, you believe in what you do, because if you can sell that to you, makes it 100 times easier to sell that to somebody else, and have fun at it, especially when you're talking the entertainment field. No matter how long you're there, and I've had to think about this of recent, we've had these changes at AMI and stuff go on. You start thinking as you get older, is this it for me? Have I,
Mm,
ridden this as long as I can doing this? When I used to do plays a lot, I used to like having a play overlap. As soon as I
mhm,
finished one, we went into rehearsals on another one. I'd audition and stuff, hoping to get something because I hated being without work, as we like to refer to it as. And more than that, you hated the day after a theater show run. It was the most
mm,
depressing, saddest day. So what you do is have to get your way through that, something to look forward to, the next show, the next
mm,
event. And variety is the spice of life. Do a bunch of different things, dabble in it, get curious, learn what you can, but mostly you don't want to start disliking something. So if you have something that's your
mhm,
hobby, your interest, and sometimes people say, "Well, I'd love to work in theater all the time. I'm going to get a job at a theater." Well, just watch yourself because you don't want to turn to hating it. And
mm,
I'd be a liar to say that there aren't days that oh God, I wish I didn't have to do the show today. I'm pretty lucky. They're very far and few between, because and I try not to let it be that haunting ghost hovering over me. This could end at any time. But you don't want to do that. You want to just enjoy. And I feel very privileged and humbled, and I'm lucky people give me their time to let me come on podcasts and run my mouth or listen to our show. It is a true pleasure. But I want to give you something. I want to entertain you. I want to inform you. And that's something I
mm,
choose to do. There are others who say, "Frig, I wouldn't be doing that." Beat it.
mhm.
Doesn't interest me. And that's okay. That's the spice of life, variety. And we all have our things we want to do and are okay with.
Love it, love it, love it, love it. And you just gave away your secrets. I am definitely watch out. I might replace you, Benny McDonald.
Hey,
You
I've
know,
had it say I've had young people who are taking broadcast courses come up to me at score events and different thing like that. And hey, yeah, hi, I'm going to come for your job. And I say, "Oh God, please, yes." I love to hear it because as a kid, somebody who absolutely worshiped broadcasting, I know I drove people crazy, my parents, my family, broadcasters in London, wanting to ask the simplest question, going, because I wanted their darn job. Get out of the way. I'm coming in, was the way I looked at it. And I love when someone says it to me because I love the passion. I love talking broadcasting. I like listening to podcasts that are about media and things like that. And I'll be fair. When I was in college, I heard all the, "Well, you guys, once they got our money, you guys are going out into the world where there's not a lot of jobs." I heard it back then,
Mhm.
many moons ago, and we always hear every day, whether it's Bell or Rogers or Chorus or somebody in the news. And unfortunately, attached to that is often, yeah, they had to let 100 people go, which blows
Mhm.
your mind.
Yeah, that's which is really unfortunate. But like, look at you now. Look at all that you've been through, and even the fact that you made mention of being a role model. And it's such an honor to finally have you on the show. So before we get out of here, Kelly, let the listeners know what's going on new with you.
Okay, man. Well, we stopped with Kelly and Rumya on AMI TV. Took a month off and became Kelly and Company, airing at 2 p.m. Eastern. You can find us as a podcast. And the thing that I think is so cool and well over, like a long time overdue, we're available on YouTube. So look up Kelly and Company on YouTube and enjoy watching us. We are at 2 p.m. when you can find that, and then go back and look at the content. We have a lot of contributors and guests that come on, external guests that come on to tell us all sorts of stuff in the life and leisure categories. So lots of fun, lots of laughs, because we got to have that, or I can't be there. And lots of good talk for that hour. We fill it right up, and we really have a heck of a good time, and hope that you can be a part of that and enjoy and laugh with us. I am on Twitter. Not really clever enough to learn any of the Instagram stuff. We do have a Kelly and Company. You can look for Kelly and Company content on Instagram, through the AMI Facebook stuff. You can find us, but on Twitter, I am at AMI Kelly Mac, and you can check out Kelly and Company on Twitter as well. So enjoy, talk to us, let us know. You can always check in, give us a call, and see what's happening. Always want
Well,
to hear from you.
wonderful. Thank you for sharing. And I learned so much today. And one thing I just even learned now, I could call you Kelly Mac. So
Hey, people do. Or the Kells. I get that a lot. And it's just wonderful. And I'm a huge nickname person. I've always, and some people, what the heck do you do that for? Like, that's not their name. Oh, yeah, it works. And even most of them you can even say in public.
Oh, wonderful. I love it. Once again, Kelly, thank you so much for spending the time with us today. And yeah, we hope you come back on the Lens Living Diverse.
Anytime, Ben. Thanks for the great conversation and letting me go off. And the best to everybody out there. Bless you.
Thank you for listening to the Lens Living Diverse. If you want to listen to previous episodes, we are available on Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and other podcast platforms. Also, if you would like to get some more information on diversity and inclusion, visit www.cnib.ca and then go to the About section on our webpage where you can find We Are CNIB. Lastly, if you have any comments, questions, or suggestions for future episodes, email us at advocacy@cnib.ca. Once again, advocacy@cnib.ca. Once again, thank you for listening to the Lens Living Diverse. I was your host, Ben. Peace.